Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about finding your own path, your own way, and embracing the imperfection of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches, former HR professionals, and mums, Kirsty and Catherine.
We love to discuss the topics that come up time and time again for our coaching clients and which affect us all, from things like acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
Each episode ends with a question for you and us to reflect on. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves.
Welcome to another episode of Mission Imperfect. And today we are going to talk about toxic positivity, which I think is a great subject. And this was your idea, Kirsty. So take it away. Tell us how this one came to mind.
Right. Well, initially, I was thinking of it in terms of positive thinking because I'm a big fan of positive thinking. I think it's really healthy to look for the good stuff in life, isn't it? And to be able to see the silver linings and as we've talked about before, to be able to think in terms of what if it all goes well rather than what if it all goes horribly wrong. But what I realized is that so often that focus on positive thinking tips over into toxic positivity, and that's a real problem. And that puts people off positive thinking, which is another problem. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So toxic positivity, it is because there is this dark side to positive thinking. And that's when we start downplaying or avoiding or denying just how bad things actually are. We refuse to acknowledge the negatives and all the shitty stuff that's going on. So whereas positive thinking is more around, seeing the silver linings, toxic positivity is basically saying, what clouds? There are no clouds. I don't need to see a silver lining because everything is fine. Well, you are basically surrounded by difficulties and stress and refusing to acknowledge it. And especially when we try and apply that to other people, I think that's when it starts to feel really toxic. And the example that came up for me to sort of try and demonstrate this was, I don't know if you've seen it, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
yeah,
And the scene with the Black Knight, who's basically just being absolutely defeated. He loses in succession both arms and his legs, and he's still jumping about going, "Come back and fight, you coward." It's not over yet. And on the one hand, you might admire his determination in that situation, but in reality, that refusal to recognize where you are and what's going on for you, I mean, that gets you nowhere, does it? You can't deal with the situation.
yeah. I so agree with you. And yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because when you suggested it, I thought this is brilliant. We haven't spoken about this. And I think, well, it's not really a term I became familiar with until probably the last few years. I hadn't heard of toxic positivity. So I'm not saying it wasn't a thing. I just don't think it was something that had this kind of identity
Yeah.
attached to it. And I think it's partly because, so I totally agree with you that I think having a positive outlook is really healthy as long as it doesn't tip over. And I was thinking about this. I don't think I know that many people where it has tipped over. I think if anything, I probably experienced more of the opposite, where we do tend to have a bit more of a negative skew on things, which I think is something we do have as adults because we have life's experiences and the negative things that we've had. They do shape our view. And then, when we talked about the what if, we start to what if and catastrophize, don't we, as opposed to
Yeah.
what if and what if it'll go really well. Um, so I was thinking, yeah, I think it's probably because I haven't been that close to toxic positivity, which I think is a good thing because actually I could see how equally, as we talk about it, literally that Black Knight that was so funny. It's a scratch. He
Fraud,
says
isn't
as his arm
it?
has fallen off. I just thought that was brilliant. I mean, that's taking the this stiff upper lip to a whole new level, isn't it? If everything's fine, we'll carry on regardless. Um, but yes, and when you said there are some sort of little phrases that actually kind of belong into this slightly toxic positivity sphere, aren't there?
Yeah, and I think you've made a really good point around that. I mean, yeah, we've talked about the allowing rather than the wallowing, that we tend to wallow rather more than we just do the whole allowing and accepting thing. Um, but I feel that positivity is often something we try and put on others. That when somebody is going through a bad time and they talk to us about it, it is very, very natural to want to reassure somebody, to cheer them up, to make them feel better.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it most often kicks in. And yeah, and there are people who will do it to themselves, and we will. I think where it applies to ourselves is often refusing to, or feeling that we should not feel down or sad. That kind of the opposite of it's okay to not be okay. I mustn't feel down. Other people are going through far worse. I think that's a very common thing to think, that trying to suppress difficult and negative feelings because you feel that you don't have enough bad stuff in your life to merit feeling bad, that
Yeah.
other people have it far worse. You're not allowed to be sad or angry or depressed, whatever it is. So there's that side of it. But so often the really well-intentioned sort of cheer up, it could be worse reaction to other people's expressions of pain or misery or whatever, are where the toxic positivity kicks in. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. I mean, because it almost
Yeah.
sounds dismissive, doesn't it? That cheer up, it could be worse. Or the other one that I hate, look on the bright side.
Yes,
At
exactly.
least X, at least, you know, there wasn't a total disaster. It's kind of like glossing over. It's like saying, well, your pain was maybe at level 6. It wasn't at level 10. So how bad can it really be? And I think whilst there is probably some value in having perspective, I think we spoke before about someone eating the last biscuit. And us demanding why isn't there
Yeah.
another biscuit? Things that I suppose there is a moment where you do perhaps want a little bit of a perspective to creep in,
Yes.
which is where those phrases I suppose do have a bit of value. I suppose for me it's about it's being too soon. I want to be able to have my response to that miserable thing, the lack of biscuit, whatever it might be, rather than have to skip straight to, oh well, because that's the notting. That's the bit that you said. Like there are no clouds.
Yeah.
There's a cloudless sky. I don't need to look for silver lining because it's all marvelous.
And in a weird way, it's kind of easier to feel once you allow yourself to feel sad that you didn't get the last biscuit, there are no more biscuits. It's easy to go, well, at least I did have a biscuit before they all went. I mean, we talked about the little phrases, and you used it when you gave your example. That use of at least, anytime somebody says, well, at least to you, there's that sense they are downplaying what you're going through. That
Yeah,
they don't necessarily, or probably usually they don't mean it in that way. But when somebody says, at least this just didn't happen, the message I think you get is, I don't have a right to complain. I don't have a right to feel
yeah.
sad. I don't have a right to be hurt by this. So I'm not allowed to feel the way I feel. I shouldn't feel the way I feel. This I should.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and that doesn't really feel good, does it? I mean, it's weird to say that, but about a difficult feeling, a feeling that isn't nice to feel. But if you're told you can't feel the way you do, that's worse than feeling the way you do, isn't it? It
Yeah.
makes it even more difficult. So when, that cheer up, it could be worse. At least it isn't this. Look on the bright side. And when somebody immediately starts to tell you about somebody else who's been through something similar, but much, much worse, and they're fine. So it all turned out okay for them. So it will for you. And you think, really?
Yeah.
Now I feel inadequate for feeling, in pain about what I'm going through when this other person had it worse. And, great, they knew how to get through it. I don't know if I do.
And yet, ironically, that if we are going to make a comparison to someone else who has got through it, I'm sure there was a moment in the middle of all that where they felt
Mm,
really, you know, miserable and, they wanted to express that, oh my God, this awful thing has happened. But perhaps someone has also said it to them. Like you said, it's not like it's meant unkindly or
No, not at
unhelpfully.
all.
So sometimes it is from that desire to, oh, let's try and make it better as quickly as possible for someone because we don't want them to suffer. But I think you'll probably agree with this. Sometimes I think we try and shove it too quickly. We've almost not we've done ourselves a disservice actually
Yes.
and not really handled it. We've just kind of glossed over it or tried to, almost like
Yeah.
it'd be like the Black Knight trying to stick a plaster his
Yeah.
on his arm and pretending that somehow he's fixed it. It's like, no, it's still not really attached, is it? You're not able to use that arm again, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean that's different. If the Black Knight had been one of them going, oh my God, my arm, I've lost my arm, and my whole life is changing, before my very eyes, sort of thing, and you go, oh, if somebody else said to him, it's only a scratch, here's a plaster, it's all fine, that's obviously so insulting. Um, he's just experienced a life-changing injury. You would hopefully people wouldn't think to say that. I mean, I guess you hear of situations where someone might say, well, at least it was your left arm and you're right-handed.
Yeah. Oh,
Cringe. Uh, but it is, I think it's almost invariably well meant. And part of it, however, does come from the fact that it's really uncomfortable to have to sit with somebody else's pain. It,
yeah.
we want to make people feel better, and we don't want to have, no, nobody wants pain, including the secondhand pain of sharing somebody else's. So it's all too easy to find yourself trying to cheer somebody up and get them to look on the bright side to try and cut them off when they're expressing negative stuff. Oh, come on, it can't be that bad. At least you've got
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
don't talk like that. No, you worry me when you talk like that, and making your feelings their problem while you're not prepared to make their feelings your problem.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think you're so right. And I think what we're saying is it's not that we don't want to try and comfort people
Mm,
and try and help, but there's a way in of doing it which doesn't verge into this possibly toxic positivity area.
yeah.
Because I think what we're essentially saying with that is that it's going to be problematic because it's just trying to bury something very, very quickly, and not really allowing them
Mm,
to be able to just kind of process it at least for a moment,
yeah.
before they decide what they're going to, before they're able to perhaps try and see the bright side, or a silver lining of
Yeah.
some kind, because I'm sure there probably is one, but they perhaps don't need it waving in their face straight away, because yeah, it's not allowing a moment to process something. And I think you and I both agree on this. If we don't process something, we're much more likely to wallow and stew in it afterwards because it hasn't really gone anywhere, has it? We haven't been given that
Exactly.
chance to work
Exactly.
through it. So actually, it's probably more damaging than allowing that kind of processing step first.
Yeah, I mean, whether you are saying these things to other people to shut down, whether you're saying them to yourselves, exactly as you just said, that most obvious problem is you are denying and suppressing the way you actually feel. And rather than just letting it flow through and settle down in a natural way, you're trying to push it down or block it off and not letting it happen as it needs to. And
Yeah.
it's still going to be there. It's not just going to go away because you're refusing to think about it. Very few things just go away when you refuse to think about them.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, harsh truth there. Um, Now, having said that, I am now trying to think of things that do go away when you don't think about them, but I must stop that. I'm getting distracted. So there probably are some things that go away and you don't think about them, but many things don't go away just because you don't think about them. Let's leave it at that. Um, so Yeah, there's that old saying that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That doesn't mean that there isn't an appropriate point at which to feel angry. We all feel
Mm.
angry. We feel anger at some point. But when you go, no, I mustn't feel angry. I'm not allowed to feel angry. I shouldn't be feeling like this. I'm not going to acknowledge it. I'm not going to admit it. I'm not going to let it happen. It just gets stuck and it's waiting to come back and bite you on the bum.
Yeah. I think that leads so well on to the next thing that you said, which is about it probably will actually limit and stunt your ability to actually see the most helpful and relevant and and right for you way out of that situation.
Mm.
Because if you're kind of denying that the problem exists, or I mustn't allow it to feel as bad as it does, or any of those things, are you really seeing the right way to resolve the issue? You know,
Yeah.
are you maybe not even going to ask for that support that you might need because you've either told yourself or because of what someone else has said to you, you thought, well, I mustn't make a big deal out of this. I must just struggle on by myself or just pretend it didn't happen. It's not
Mm.
offering you the full. It's actually almost the very opposite of what we would say coaching does, isn't it? Which is about opening up the options for the way
Yeah.
forward. I think it's doing the opposite. It's making it forced into a smaller tunnel.
You can't solve a problem you won't acknowledge.
Mm.
You've got to be able to look at it and go, yeah, this is what it is. And you know what? It's a bit shit and I don't like it. But now I'm accepting that it's there and this is what it is and this is how I feel. Now what? How do I deal with this? Maybe it's you don't have options in changing it, but you always have options of how you respond in the long run and how you can be and how you can manage things, unless you refuse to look at it. You
Yeah,
cut yourself off from options, you cut yourself off from seeking the help that you need. Yeah,
yeah,
excellent point. And you can't plan effectively going forward. Kind of the same thing, but kind of different. Is just life in general. If you're always refusing to acknowledge that the problems and downplaying all the bad stuff, you'll never. This is kind of making back to what if there is a place for both the negative and the positive what ifing, isn't you? And if you allow that toxic positivity to deny you any contemplation of what could go wrong, what's going to be bad, what's going to be difficult, you can't plan to manage it and deal with it. You've got no sort of contingency going on because you
yeah,
will suffer loss, you will experience difficulty. And if you've never considered how you might manage that, it's going to be a lot harder when you do experience it.
yeah, exactly. It's going back to the point I said at the start about skewed reality. Like
Yes.
we do have perhaps a tendency as adults to have a slightly more negative view on life and our experiences and consequences and so on. But what in an ideal world, what we want to try and do is find that slightly balanced middle ground, which is a better reflection of what is. And the toxic positivity trait takes us too far the other way. So we're skewing in the other direction. So what we want to try and do is have that healthier middle ground, because I think that's when our ability to see the solutions, the plans, the options are going to be greater for us. So we've
Yeah.
spoken before about being at that more negative end of the scale when we certainly in that what if episode. But this, ironically, is something I think a lot of people perhaps won't feel so familiar with. But just hearing some of these things, they might think, "Oh, yeah, okay." You know, those phrases that we, um, you know,
The cheer
at
up and
least, and yeah,
the
yeah,
bright
those
side of happiness.
they
Yeah.
are ones that we've all heard, aren't they? And we know that they're well-meaning, but actually, I bet you can remember a time when you've just been like really annoyed
Oh, yeah.
someone say that to you. I know I can. So,
And not only have we heard them, we've probably all used them. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah, got to probably put my hand up there. So
Yeah.
let's talk about then moving it back to rather than something toxic, let's talk about positive thinking because that's what
Yeah.
we did start off by saying that we were fans of positive thinking. So how do we keep it in that positive territory where it is more helpful rather than verging into the the toxic end of the scale?
Well, excellent question. Anyone would think you're a coach. Exploring things and looking for the way forward. Excellent coaching. So I think possibly counterintuitively is that one of the most positive things you can ever do is to just acknowledge how bad things are. Acknowledge that it's all a bit shit. That you don't feel good about life or what's going on, that you're struggling. Wh- Whether it's acknowledging it for yourself or whether it's acknowledging what somebody else is telling you, what somebody else is saying, to say to somebody, oh my God, that sounds awful for you, rather than, oh, well, it could be worse. How different does it feel to be on the receiving end of that?
Mm.
You are going through something difficult. I hear you, I see you. That's whether it's to yourself or to somebody else. That's a powerful thing to do. And it permits you, it means that you have permission to feel the way you do. You don't have to struggle with, I shouldn't be feeling this way on top of everything else you're struggling with. It's it seems so counterintuitive. And I think there's a sense when you're talking to somebody else in particular that sort of acknowledging their pain might make them go deeper into it, that you have to try and push them up out of it rather than allowing them to be in it.
Mm.
Whereas in actual fact, the first step is often to them being able to move forward is to just give them permission to be where they are, to know where they're starting from.
Yeah, I think so. I can well imagine this idea of if you feel like you're struggling and for someone to say, I hear that for you, just a simple acknowledgement. And then I think it just feels easier to then consider, and now what can be done about this? Just feels like a much better place to start than, well, you know, it could be worse, blah blah blah. You're just going to feel, I think, riled and like, well, they don't even understand, so I'm not going to entertain a conversation about this, and I'm not going to see perhaps possibilities than a conversation that could have taken such a different um trajectory forwards. It's like, let's try and sort of manage it and see what's possible rather than just deny it and hope for the best.
Yeah,
That's just not.
let's just hope it all
I
sorts
know which I
itself out.
prefer.
It'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And, but the second most important thing is don't compare, whether it's comparing your situation, to others or whether it's comparing somebody else's situation. Don't do it. Every situation is unique because every individual is unique. Everybody's context is always going to be slightly different. You know, I mean, so many people suffer cancer, for instance. Yet every single case is different. Everybody's situation is unique. You can't just say it's going to be the same. And so, pain is not a competition when it boils down to it. And just because you think, oh well, I've been through far worse than that, they should just get on with it. Up until the point you had been through the thing that you consider to be far worse, you would have felt that that level of pain was the worst. Does that make any kind of sense? It did in my head.
No, no, it really does. 'Cause actually, we've been very honest about this, haven't we? About comparisons being a road to nowhere. And I think just the very simple fact is that they are fruitless in the sense of that person's life is not your life. You won't experience what they're experiencing, and vice versa. So it's almost a non-starter. I'm not saying that it can be sometimes a point of inspiration, like, oh, look
Yeah.
how well this person faced this challenge and has spoken about it and has just, I mean, just hearing you then talk about cancer diagnosis, it made me think of Chris Hoy. I don't know if you saw, he did a
Mm.
documentary recently, and I thought he was really inspiring about how he spoke about it. And what I loved is there was no toxic positivity at all. He spoke about the shock, the anger, the disappointment, and then he spoke about how miserable some of the treatment was for him,
Oh
again,
God,
just from
yeah.
his own personal experience. But he's now, he's actually doing quite well at the moment. he knows, who knows what the future is going to hold. But so I can see it can be inspiring from that point of view. But your own experience, and what I loved is he's very rounded in his view of this. He knew that other people were having longer treatment than his, and some people found some of it not as hard as he did. He said one of the worst things was they had to wear like a cold sort of skull cap. It was part of the treatment to help you not lose your hair and so on. But I think you can have sources of inspiration sometimes from comparison,
Yes.
but in a way, it's still your own experience is going to be your own. It's not going to be anyone else's. And there's almost no point trying to trade the, well, I've got this type, which must be worse than your type. Do you know what I mean? It's just, that's just not going to get anyone anywhere, is it?
No, and I think this comes up a lot with bereavement. Some people will be grieving at different levels for different periods of time. And there is a tendency to say things around, that they should be over it by now.
Mm.
Or you hear people say, I should be over it by now, because they're comparing themselves to other people and other situations they've seen. Whereas it's always different. So as soon as you start saying, oh, well, so and so was in that situation, but oh, it was worse because they had this, that, and the other. But you know what? They got through it. It's all going to be fine. You don't need to worry. No, you've got nothing to worry about. You think, but I am actually fucking worried sick. And now I just feel that I shouldn't be, that I'm not allowed to be, that I'm somehow inadequate because I can't deal with it as well as this other person did. And that becomes really isolating and just doesn't help, does it?
No, no, not at all. And I think moving on from that, where you acknowledge and you
Yeah.
recognize what someone might be experiencing, I think it then helps you with them potentially identify things that might help them feel better about it, or what can they do, not in a why don't you do this, or how about this, or this person did this, moving back into that like comparison type territory. um
Yeah. But
Maybe
it's,
help them identify what's going to help.
yeah, encourage them to think about what will help them rather than making suggestions to them or telling them what they should be doing. I think that's a key difference, isn't it? Because we've all been through difficult situations in life and we've all found things that have helped us at some point. And just encouraging ourselves or others to recognize that and think about it. And let's be clear, the fact that you can find moments of respite, of enjoyment, of pleasure, maybe even of happiness amidst all the bad stuff going on does not negate the bad stuff. I think sometimes there's this feeling that if we allow ourselves to stop feeling bad about the bad stuff, it means it's not as bad as it feels, as we
Mm.
think.
Yeah,
We're making. If I allow myself to go out and have this lovely day out with people I go out and enjoy myself, then it means I'm just making a fuss over everything else. It can't be that bad because I should be feeling bad all the time. No, that's not true. You can feel terrible about the bad stuff going on in your life, and you can have moments of happiness, of joy in the midst of that. But
yeah,
both it can exist together and be true. And I think this is kind of the balancing half of the acknowledging just how bad it is, and you can find some respite. You're allowed a little, you deserve a little respite. You need a little respite amidst that if you're ever going to cope with it, or cope can be an emotive word, can't it? Deal with it, get
yeah,
through it somehow. So absolutely, that's when the positive thinking rather than the toxic side of it. It's not that, going for spa treatment is going to make everything better, but maybe that nice bubble bath is going to, just for the time you're there, allow you to feel a little bit of relaxation, allow you to feel a little bit calmer, a little bit soothed, a little bit like you can keep moving forward, keep getting through it. Not that everything is okay.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I think you summed this up so well when you said positive thinking isn't about denying the dark things, but there is an element of seeing some of the light in the dark perhaps we've acknowledged the dark first. That's the important thing, rather than just gone, it's always light all of the time, because it just isn't. That isn't life. And as you've just said, we will experience bad stuff and good stuff together. Both are true.
Yeah.
And that is the reality of the complexity of just life, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of when you if somebody switches the lights off and it's pitch black, I mean, I live in the city. It's rare I experience pitch black. So if I stay in the countryside sometimes and you switch the light out at bedtime, whatever, and there's no street lights, suddenly your initial feeling is it's pitch black. It's, oh my God, I've gone blind. What's happened? Um, but the more you lie there and just look into the dark, the more you start to see light. It doesn't mean that it's not dark, though.
Yeah.
It is still very dark. And if somebody then tries to shine a light in your face to stop you believing that you've gone blind, it does actually blind them.
Yes.
So somebody, yeah, just shining that bright torch of toxic positivity at you, counterintuitive, it makes everything dark again.
Yeah. Does more harm than good.
Yeah,
It's basically our message, isn't it, about
I think it
toxic
well
positivity?
summed up from my waffling there. Yes.
Yeah, I know. I think it was a really good point to make, and I think
I
I
stretched that
feel
metaphor till it screamed, I feel.
yes, yes. We've talked about Donald quite an awful lot, haven't we? Okay, let's share some favorite quotes on toxic positivity, or just positivity, I think, in general, or a healthier
Yeah.
view on it. So, do you share yours, Kirsty?
Oh, which one to choose? Yeah, I'm going to go for. There's one from Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And he says, the avoidance of suffering is a form of suffering. The avoidance of struggle is a struggle. The
Mm,
denial of failure is a failure. Hiding what is shameful is itself a form of shame. I just think
that's
that,
good. We could have just said that, couldn't we?
yeah, it'd
Would
been
have been
quite short.
perfect.
Yeah. Damn, we could have been done in, 5 minutes or less.
Yeah.
It was, I had a nice chat anyway. Don't know about you.
But what a good point, isn't it? Is exactly what we're saying. If you just literally try and squash something away, it's going to do the exact opposite of what it was
Mm,
intended to do. Hence why it's probably labeled as toxic
yeah.
positivity. I really like this one because it drew on one of my least favorite parts of it, which was the look on the bright side. And this is toxic positivity is pressuring people to look on the bright side. They have to suppress anxiety, anger, sadness, and grief. Healthy support is shielding people from the dark side. You invite them to express their pain and show them they're not alone and won't feel it forever. And that's Adam Grant. And I love that. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like shielding, but not in a kind of total denial. Let's pretend it's not even there. I think that you invite them to express their pain, show them they're not alone and they won't feel it forever. It's such a good starting point for thinking, where is a more positive way out of this that's helpful and useful and realistic and has darkness and light in it as well. And I just thought that was so well expressed. I really like that one.
It's lovely, isn't it? And there's actually something Susan David said on Brene Brown's Dare to Lead podcast, the ending of which we referred to it earlier, actually. So, toxic positivity is forced false positivity. It may sound innocuous on the surface, but when you share something difficult with someone and they insist that you turn it into a positive, what they're really saying is, my comfort is more important than your reality.
Yeah.
And that's something I know will be coming to my mind whenever I feel those nasty words at least forming in response to
I'm going
somebody
to be so
telling me what's
mindful of
going
that
on for
now.
them. Yeah.
Make sure I don't say it. Well, that leads us quite nicely onto a question for this week, which
Oh,
we will
here we
both
go.
answer.
Question.
And it is, what's the thing you most dread hearing when you confide in someone about a difficult situation or feelings? I think this is such a good question because it will make us all mindful of how we might respond to that
Yeah.
as well, which I think we've both thought, please don't say that I ever go at least to somebody because that would be, I'd feel like such a hypocrite. So I'm going to be very mindful of that now because, as I've made no secret of, mine is look on the bright side. I mean, automatically, I'm afraid, my hackles have gone straight up. No, I don't want to. I'm just going to caveat that by saying yet. It's not that I want to live
Excellent point. Yeah.
in the misery, but the truth is, if I have confided in someone something difficult that feels rubbish, no matter how much on the scale of truly rubbish things that can happen to you might be, the last biscuit, as we've spoken about, let's be honest, it probably isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. But the truth is, what you're looking for in that moment is, well, speaking from my opinion, is a little bit of sympathy and an ability to have that grumble. I just want to have that grumble and gripe. And my passing through that crappy bit is faster when I'm allowed to do this. If someone says to me, yep, God, I hear you, or just invites me to just say a little bit more or just have my grumble, then I'm
Yeah.
far more likely to get over it than if they just said, oh, well, that's not a big deal, and made some other reference to something that clearly is probably a worse situation, but it just doesn't help me in that moment because I'm only experiencing what I'm experiencing. So that's the point about comparison being so fruitless in that sense.
Yes.
um but then what ironically will happen is that I will see that brighter side quicker, I think. A little bit later, I just want that moment to have my grumble and my gripe and be seen and heard before I move on. um
It's, it's weird, but true, isn't it? When,
yeah.
when, when somebody says, oh, that's awful, and you go, thank you, yes, it is. You almost do it to yourself after that. You will almost come back with, but at least in your from
Yes,
within
yes, yourself.
yourself,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
start then finding the bright side. And sorry, when you were saying that, I realized there's another Monty Python reference here. I can't believe I didn't notice it before. Always look on the bright side of life.
Oh yes.
Is it life's a piece of shit when you look at it? Was it life's a laugh and death's a joke? It's true. Something like but there you are. Yeah, that's a cheery point. But yes, this is the Monty Python Last Biscuit episode.
It is, yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes.
But yeah, I like that. The whole look on the bright side. And unless it's that song, which is now my earworm for the day. And
Mm,
and for me, I think the thing I'm most dread is somebody offering me their solution to what I'm going through. So it's, oh, what you need to do is, what you should do is,
yeah.
and they rattle it off. And it's sort of, well, firstly, you just made my problem seem like it's nothing, and it feels big to me. You, you've made me feel inadequate and incompetent. And then secondly, that doesn't feel like the right solution for me at all. You might be able to go down that route. That might feel good to you, but it doesn't to me. I'm just seeing all the ways that's going to complicate things, make it worse, or not deal with it. And meanwhile, they think they've solved it all and done a great thing, and off they go. And yet, I'm sort of feeling worse than I did before I told them about it.
Mhm.
But again, it is so natural to want to help somebody, to want to be able to fix it for them. It's such a natural instinct.
Yeah. And yet, obviously, as coaches, what we would say is be supportive, of course, but it's trying to help someone fix it for themselves rather than you try and, you know, charge in
Yeah.
there and offer, well, this is how to do it. Because perhaps from your perspective, it might be helpful and it might work, but you're not actually feeling what they're feeling anyway in the first place. So it's coming from good intentions,
Yes.
but the way it's going to be received is probably not that helpful.
Yeah. It's you never have all the information about somebody's situation. So you can
Yeah,
never know that what you think would work would work.
exactly. Okay.
On which note, maybe it's time to wander off and start singing Always Look on the Bright Side off microphone.
Yeah, just don't keep saying it to people. So sing
Yeah.
it in your head, but maybe don't offer it to other people. That'll be there you go. That's the takeaway from this week's episode.
And if you haven't seen the Monty Python and the Holy Grail Black Knight scene, then we will link to it in the show notes for your delight and delectation.
It is actually very, very funny. Did enjoy seeing that again. Right, that's it for this week. We will see you all soon for another episode.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect.
Please visit the show notes for details on how to contact us and for any resources we may have on the topic discussed.
Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.